Really good things. We got a little light fare tonight, kind of a review, but with the new year here, just looking at some things we could possibly address, work on, kind of examine in our own particular lives. I'm calling it Hope of the Family, and I'm borrowing a title from this book, which is actually a transcript of an interview. I'm not going to get into the meat of the book, just quote a couple of things from the front matter, because what we try to do is, or what we are promoting to do, is to or avert the things that are being addressed in this book. But it's an interview with Gerard Cardinal Mueller, who is the former Bishop of Regensburg, Germany. Yes, another German shepherd. Prefect, he's currently, though, the prefect for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, a very, very high-ranking Vatican office. Very high, and you might recall that it was at one point recently held by Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, more commonly or popularly known as Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. And in the editor's preface here, he says, Hope of the Family. What are we getting at here? The possessive case gives rise to various interpretations. It could be a hope for the family. It could be a hope that's based on the family. Or it could even be a hope that is family itself. But when I look at, we have some challenges in society, in the church. I'll look at, based on what I've learned, my experience, if we have some strong families, we can address a lot of those challenges that we have here in front of us. He says it's a pathway of hope, primarily, and not primarily a pathway of problems. We might say it's, in the first place, the solution. So that's how I look at it, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. It gives us some opportunities to face some of these challenges with the families we have. I'm talking generalities. Not everything will be applied to everybody, so just bear with me. It's not an offense to anybody. Don't feel left out. We just kind of come along for the ride. We got to know that we can't order our principles by the exceptions. There's going to be exceptions. We have to order them by the norm. So, Hope of the Family, in the introduction, this is with the actual cardinal that's asking the questions in the interview. Because I say the best way to get it right is to not necessarily have to fix it, but to get it right before. And how better can we do that than by giving formation to our own children? And ironically, when I went back and looked at this, I'm talking about this in my spiritual group right now, but I'm studying through the complete interview, but I'm almost done. He says, preparation for the sacrament of matrimony begins with Christian conversion of adolescents, of the kids, and the religious and moral formation of young men and women. So I like that word a lot. I use it a lot. Formation. How are we forming our kids? So I'd like to first look at the core of the family, which is the marriage. And I don't know if, especially with the weird things people are calling marriage today, I think it's a good idea to first look at what's the purpose of marriage, so we can go to the Catholic Church's actual understanding or teaching, official teaching of the purpose of marriage. And so I have from Canon Law, Canon 1055 says, the matrimonial covenant by which a man and a woman establish between themselves a partnership of the whole of life, and which is ordered by its nature to the good of the spouses and the procreation and education of offspring. Two purposes, primarily. Has been raised by Christ the Lord to the dignity of the sacrament between the baptized. So I want to look at the two purposes of marriage. Firstly, historically, the church has said the primary purpose is procreation of children, so we'll take that first. This one's worded a little different. But is society getting that one? Are we open to children? So let's look at how we could be more open to receiving children. Kids grow up in a family where children are expected, not seen as a burden or a cost. I remember whenever our kids were younger, it was often, they were growing up and they were like, when's the next one coming? And when's the next one coming? And they were fascinated with these other little people. I mean, because they're normal. I mean, they like their material things and all, but just totally fascinated with the babies. We in a materialistic society that kind of puts a price on everything. Says, oh, it's so much money, and measures things, everything in terms of money. And we have to make that solid decision. Are we going to serve God or mammon? Back to the very basics of life, basics of marriage. Sometimes I wonder if it's just a veiled excuse because of the amount of commitment of bringing another human being into the world. Ain't no more commitment than that. It's huge. Understand money. We have to make a decent living. We have to be able to provide. But in reality, I don't think anybody in our culture lives in poverty unless they make a choice that causes them to do so. There's too many social programs that help everybody out and all that. Some people have to live more simply than others, which simply means that maybe those that don't might have more luxuries, but that's not poverty. And the person that has some luxuries, there's going to be somebody that him's got even more luxuries, and somebody over him's got even more. So it's really not a contest or anything, just however you want to live. But I think we could always, provide for another child, and we just need to live it and be open to it. And I think that goes a long way toward addressing some of the ills of society. It's all about just being open to God's will and God's plan. I think, we had an unplanned pregnancy, and he's doing some pretty profound things right now. I'll just leave it at that. Order toward the good of the spouses, the other purpose. Again, it's what the kids grow up around. Like I said, the little kids grow up around, just seeing it's part of life. You see these little babies just coming along. Kids observing their mom and dad as a couple. How do mom and dad treat each other? I remember often in Father Van's homilies at weddings of his weddings that I went to. He would often use this statement. He would say, the thing that kids want more than anything else is for their mom and dad to love each other. More than anything else. More than all the material goods. They want their mom and dad to love each other. And that's why the kids are victims of divorce. I didn't come from that situation, but I just hear about it. But a lot of times the couple will break up and go off and find somebody else, try to find their own happiness in their own places. But the kids are still without mom and dad together. So they still suffer. They're the victims. This particular aspect might be a little more of a challenge for us to examine ourselves. Because as we're going through the relationship, husband and wife, we're building that marriage. It's sort of like, I guess if anybody's ever built a house, you might have some helpers. And those helpers are learning how to be carpenters while they're building the house, but you're still getting the house built. You having two things going on right there. You're training the helpers, and you also are getting the house built. Same thing with the marriage. We have our own marriage going, but our kids are learning as they observe. They're watching. Believe me, they're watching to see how marriage is supposed to work. And look, if society's going to improve, we got to get this right. So our kids are learning from us just by osmosis. So, as we face the new year, it might be a good point to say, how are we doing on this? And I'm not asking for any responses, but talk to your spouse. Are we in the best place we can be in relation to each other right now? Because I tell you, stuff changes, life changes. We see life change a lot right now. It's just as soon as you get used to a certain state, then things change up on you. It's always something different. And that's why we gotta stay walking with each other. What's the challenges in this area? I remember Dr. Brent Petrie, one of his audios I listened to, he talked about, I think it was a parish he went and did a mission, or where he was giving a talk or something. And there was a gentleman that approached him who, I don't think he was a licensed counselor or anything, but he was just a man from the parish that would help out some of the couples that were having difficulties in the parish. He said in every case where they were having these difficulties, the complaint by the husband was that she doesn't respect me. And in every case, the complaint by the wife was that he doesn't choose me. So let's look at each of those two. Let's take the husband's complaint first. She doesn't respect me. Ladies, please be careful on how you address and speak to him, especially in front of other people. Especially in front of the children. But also in front of other people. And even when you're alone, you really have the ability to take his knees out, just like that. And you have to understand, men, there's that book out there, Fascinating Womanhood. Men are mystified by femininity. And you may take it for granted the beautiful nature that you possess, but we're mystified. You're the most intimate person in his life. It matters to him how you feel about him, so actions should follow suit. Let's look at the wife's complaint toward the men. He doesn't choose me. And obviously the most extreme circumstance of that would be literal infidelity, which hopefully none of us would have to deal with. But you also have infidelity of the heart. And we're talking about impure acts or even looks, because remember what Christ said about what it means for a man to look lustfully upon another woman. So we need to be aware of that, the infidelity. But beyond that, choosing. Okay, the man, he doesn't choose me. What is she meaning there? What does she mean by that? And we're kind of independent. We have the ability to choose what we do. Basically, it really comes down to time. How we spend our time. Are we choosing to be with this companion in our life that we have? We have our work, and some of us can have more leeway than others, but how much work do we actually need to do? And if we work for somebody else when we're at work, are we really at work? Are we just, killing time with the co-workers? Do we need to be there that much? And then beyond that, we have our spare time, recreation, entertainment. She wants to be involved with you. She wants to be your intimate companion, and that doesn't just mean physically. She wants you to know what's going on with her. She wants you to listen. She wants to talk. And that's how we get intimate and close. Communication is huge. So you should know her better than anybody else knows her. And there should be no secrets. And I'm not talking about confession. Don't go to confession with each other. Some things are reserved for spiritual direction in the confessional. That aside, in my mind, there shouldn't be any topics off the table. Timing's important. Sometimes it's not time to go there. But still at the same time, we should be able to broach any topic that given the right time. Some of them are hard to deal with, but they have to be dealt with. But I say, if we have at the core strong marriages, building strong families, making up strong churches and neighborhoods, and it just builds on itself from there. And it ends up to where those people from these families end up being leaders and people that come to society with answers for things. I'm seeing my kids actually doing that as they get out further into the world and meeting up with co-workers and things, and they have answers where others don't. So I want to move into next, just talking about the next stage, with the older children and guiding, and that's chapter 14 in my book, because I take it from where, it's toward the young men, but where they start out becoming independent and interdependent, and then moving on and forming relationships, and then finally an intimate companion, and then having children of their own and learning and loving and leading, and then finally guiding them out, because they're not supposed to stay with us forever. And that's how these families can aid society, how the family can be the hope. We got to have hope. With all the things that are surrounding us, there's got to be some element of hope. And I think it lies in the family. The work's not done when they're 18 or when they graduate from high school. 18 to 22 or so, pretty tricky years. Not always the best time to make permanent decisions. There's exceptions to that, but depends on the young person, where they are and the maturity level and things as that. Some are ready, some aren't. But we can't assume that they got it. Just because we've been teaching them all this time and they've been growing up around it, we can't assume that they got it. Because what are they doing? They're trying to wade their way into this big puzzle of a world and find how they plug into it. In my mind, I think it's important in those first years to still have them around the house so we can look in their eyes and see what's going on with them. Keep tabs on them, checking in on them, seeing how they're handling this new experience that they're going through. I also found that it's important to remember my own experience. What was it like to be 18, 20, 22, and all the new things you're starting to do at that age, and what's on the forefront of your mind at that age? What's your ambitions? It's good to remember. First job, first car, relationships, all sorts of new kind of peer pressures. It's different. It's a lot hitting them at one time. That's why it's important that we know our kids. We got to know them. We got to know, and that's why I have I emphasize so much and how I'm so partial to homeschooling, because we get to be with them so much. We know what they know, and that's how we have that formation we were talking about earlier. Trust your training. Okay, they're gonna mess up. They're going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but hopefully by keeping them closely connected, usually the mistakes are pretty minor, can be fixed pretty easy. But I recall from 3 Marks of Manhood, Dr. Dilsaver said, they're going to waver a little bit, and then they're going to revert back to what they were trained with at adolescence. That's why that formation and training in adolescence is so important. They're going to come back. That's what they're going to come back to, whatever they experience at that point. That's their baseline. Another thing about it, though, I find it gives if you have the older kids still at home and you still have younger ones we raise them, it gives them a different perspective on the training they got, because they see the little ones still being trained, and they get to look at it, it's like, well, mom and dad did that with me. And then they get to see it and it's almost training them to be able to do it themselves as an older child or young man, young woman. And they actually can get involved with it. If you have an older kid and with younger kids in the room, you can kind of coach them up on being orderly or how to behave, and even if you have a daughter at home, she could assist with homeschooling if you're homeschooling. So it ends up benefiting both the older and the younger. And with that, they learning how to handle kids. Because everybody loves the babies. The babies are cute. but then they grow up, and then they're not so cute. So how do we handle that? And so it gives them that hands-on experience where it's not a shocker once they're doing it on their own and having their own kids. That creates a ton of family bonding. A ton. I realize I'm speaking to an old Treya, and I'm almost at the end, and I probably didn't talk about anything spiritual the whole time. I might have quoted a canon or something. So I guess I better say something spiritual. This meat and potato stuff, really practical. Yeah, pray for them. I do, but even beyond that, pray for the wisdom, to have the wisdom in guiding them. They're going to come to us for guidance, for that guidance. And sometimes my wife will ask me, how did you know to tell them that? I didn't know. When she asked me, I just break into my Kenny Rogers. I say, you got to know. So info. No, seriously, though. Mass, confession, adoration, rosary. My other weapon, precious blood devotion. I'm not going to say I'm the most prayerful person in the group, but I'm consistent. Something's got to be real wrong for me to miss. I think staying in a state of grace, I think that's where the wisdom comes in. Because sometimes you got to say no, and sometimes you got to say, yeah, go. So you got to know which one to go with. And when we don't know, we have to be humble enough to get some advice, because there's others around us that could aid us, that may have already been through it. And in addition to that, with spirituality, we're giving them the faith. They have to embrace it as their own. Can't be forced on them, but at the same time, we can stay connected with them. See how they're handling making it to Mass, being prayerful, having consistent prayer life, sticking to their commitments. So that's still, even if they might be adults, still part of our duty, especially if they're in the home. So we can see here the family can be a great source of hope for a society that's in front of us with some challenges. We got a lot of opportunities ahead of us. But if we look at the two main purposes of marriage, being the good of the spouses and the procreation of children and education of those children, and then look toward as being that answer to these challenges, guiding these young people on into the world and helping them find their place. I think the family could be a big answer to the challenges ahead of us. God bless you.
God bless you.